Will your NBA team win tonight? You might be asking yourself this question if you're a sports fan and you watch all 82 games of the Oklahoma City Thunder and you're interested in seeing how your team is going to perform on a night-to-night basis. If you're into fantasy basketball, people that get involved with this, they pick their favorite players around their league and build a fantasy roster and try to score points basically by how well their team performs. If you're into sports gambling, for example, the Oklahoma City Thunder, you've maybe the OKC Thunder is playing the Lakers, and you just put $100 down on the OKC Thunder. So you're financially invested. Maybe looking at the data that I'm going to present, you might change your mind and say, hey, I'm actually going to put $100 down for the Lakers. And finally, if you're part of the basketball organization, you're a general manager, and you're looking to basically just move some players around to get a winning roster. So the data that I'm going to present to you is essentially some factors that help determine how what helps an NBA team win. So why even bother, right? Um, and why we've had statistics for the past 40 years for basketball. The reason why is because the game of basketball has changed. And if you look at this chart, um, the 3-point shot attempt has increased by about 600 percent, 6.6 to 34.1. If you look at the pace and the points per game, we see this boomerang effect where it's coming back to what it was in the 90s. So lots have changed. Now the data that I picked was from the 2018-2019 regular season. The reason why I chose this was because it was the most it was data prior to the COVID-19. And with COVID, if you were testing positive, you were going to be out for 2 or 3 games. And I know that injuries do happen, but we can all agree that a lot of people got COVID, especially in the NBA. So those players were out 2 or 3 games, and that changes your starting lineup, how your team's going to play during a game. If you don't have a Kobe Bryant or something, if he's not on your starting lineup, that changes the game. Second is like personal lives for personal lives for athletes also changed because we weren't allowed to do social gatherings, and when your personal life is affected, most likely, it might affect your professional life. Another thing is it's the most recent data, right? And that's going to reflect the modern NBA. So we want to get fresh data. But my thoughts are once the COVID restrictions are lifted, we'll see return back to normal, and so the statistics that I'm pulling, we're going to see some more consistency with that. Now, we want to look at all aspects of the game and try to understand what the contributing factors are. So what I have here are 22 independent variables. These are all statistics that are recorded during the game, and obviously they affect the game, how you're going to play. Now, 22 variables is a lot, and with all these, we want to see what we're going to see is we might see some correlation between the independent variables. So we want to get rid of those because it might create some statistical noise. We're not going to be able to determine the real factors of what's contributing to a win. So the ones you see highlighted in red are the ones that have high correlation, or the variables weren't that significant. So for example, minutes, really not going to change throughout the course of the season. You'll get some overtime games, but those are more rare than common. Obviously, the more field goals you make, the higher your field goal percentage is going to go up. So we want to get rid of that data. Finally, we're going to have our 12 variables of what we project that is going to weigh in on what helps a team win or lose. So we want to run this through Solver and figure out which ones we get the highest coefficients for. 8 hours later, true story, took a long time, but after we did analysis on our independent variables, we were finally able to get some results. So now we have something called a logit formula or a logit equation. And so what we have here is the way that logit is going to work is that the bigger the logit value, the higher the probability. The lower the logit value, the lower the probability. And we were able to predict if a team was going to win or lose at 75% accuracy. So let's look at the graph of what we predicted. There's about 1,800 predictions that we were able to get correctly, 75% accuracy. So that's 2,460 games for the season. Now, our tolerance is about 20%. So anything above 80% for probability, we're going to say that's good data. Anything below, we're going to say, or below 20% probability, we're going to say that's also good data. So below 20, not going to win. Above 80, yeah, that team's going to more likely to win. And with 75% accuracy, looking pretty good. Now, what are some contributing factors to winning? Surprise to a lot of people that are rooting for the modern NBA, for getting rid of the big man. Well, not so fast. This is telling you that defensive rebounding is very important. And that's normally a big man role. So your power centers and forwards, those people play a good contributing factor to how well your team's going to do for the regular season. Now, second, modern NBA thinkers are going to say, "Hey, I got you. 3-point percentage is good. It's still important," and they're right. It is 55.09. The higher the 3-point percentage, the better chances you have for your team winning. 2-point percentage was right behind it. Layups, dunks, things like jump shots. You can shoot those at a high percentage shot. Then you got yourself a pretty good chance of winning the game. And then free throws made. It's not about when you get fouled, make sure you make your free throws. And these are some of the contributing factors to winning. Now, what helps the team lose? Personal fouls, -61, turnovers, and then free throw percentage. I thought this was interesting too because you could put yourself in a pretty bad position because let's say you have the ball and you lose it, and then that person that stole the ball is running across the court and about to do a slam dunk, and you foul that person and they make their free throws. Well, you've put yourself at a disposition for about 160 points. Not so good, right? So coaches may think that a person steals the ball and they break away for a dunk, let them have it. Don't foul them, and don't let them make a free throw, right? And then free throw percentage was really interesting. It's like the higher the percentage, the less likely you are to win. And my thought about that is that if let's say your free throws are 100% for that game, well, my perspective is that chances are you're probably not getting to the free throw line enough because 1 out of 1 is 100%, right? Sounds good, 100% getting all your free throws done, but you probably didn't get to the foul line a lot. And so that to me that was an interesting factor. Now, most surprising factors, assists. I thought the coefficient was going to be really big, but it wasn't. It's pretty low because an assist is basically passing the ball and leads to a basket, but that didn't really affect anything. So I think just if I wanted to get some more accuracy, I'd like to understand passing, just passing in general, and how that contributed to a team win. That data isn't really available right now, but hopefully in the future, I'd like to include that into my regression table. So and the next one is home team. So if you're, like I said, you're an avid NBA fan and And surprise, surprise, you showing up to the game doesn't really matter. um, and then the third one is steals. I thought that was interesting because when I think of steals, I think of getting out of defensive position. And you're just taking a big gamble because if you miss on a steal, you're going to personally foul. And but if you, I guess if you can do it right, more power to you. So it's just surprising. I thought these ones were the most interesting, and I didn't predict it. I thought home team would be pretty high up there. Now, room for improvement. Obviously, 75% accuracy, 25% error. So my thoughts on this: veteran experience. If you have a player that's been playing in the league for 6 years versus somebody that's been playing for 1 year, you like to think that they have a better control of the game, turning it on during the fourth quarter. Battle of stats. I'm going to explain that in the next slide. And then luck. Teams just get lucky. They maybe a team just has a really good night, and the other team just has a really bad night, and they're a really good team, right? Golden State's not going to win all the games. So again, room for improvement. I said veteran experience, and my thought was uh, when I looked at each game that I got wrong, and I looked at this Lakers versus Celtics, and if I looked at the stats, I'm like, wait a minute, Celtics should have won this game, but they didn't. And this is just totally personal, but I would say LeBron James has been a dominant force in the Eastern Conference for the past 10 years. He was on the Lakers during this game, or well, he's on the Lakers team now, but he's just been dominant against the Eastern Conference. The next one is OKC Thunder versus the Hornets. I looked more on my probability, and it was just a battle between two losers because uh, Oklahoma City had like a 15% chance of winning, and the Hornets had a 7%. So obviously somebody has to win the game, and OKC won, and I actually predicted the Hornets to lose. Actually, I predicted both of them to lose because they were both under 20%. But obviously somebody has to win the game. Third one I looked at was the Brooklyn Nets. They're not the greatest team, but they should have won it, and part of that is injured starters. If you have an injured starter, it changes the trajectory of the game. Now, here are some of the things that this data doesn't provide, and I think, and I actually think also moving forward, it'd be worth it to look into defensive efficiency for uh, the for the team that you're going for, and then the opponent. So some suggestions. I thought that we have all this data. What do we do with it? And my thought is, if you want to have a good winning season, it's best to have good centers and power forwards. Those are your type of people that are going to get you your rebounds. And so the higher the rebound, the better chance you are. Perimeter shooters, if you got shooting guards, make sure that they can shoot the three. And then also like your point guard too. So he also has to be able to shoot the 3 point percentage and do it well. And then for everybody that's on the roster to be a good free throw shooter, being able to get to the foul line. Centers and power forwards, they get fouled. They're more physical, and so they got a really good chance of making those free throws because of the fact that they're getting fouled. And so if we can combine these factors, we got a good chance of having a winning formula, having your team fall into a pretty good seed. So thank you for allowing me to do this presentation, and have a good night.